Welcome. My name is Jim Barnes. I'm actually the CEO of a company called Invista. Today's presentation is on warehouse management system versus warehouse control system versus warehouse execution system. So just raise of a hand today. I'm assuming most of you have some shape or form of a warehouse management system. Fair? Yeah, okay. Doesn't surprise me, right? I mean, the fact is that warehouse management systems today are pretty much a foregone conclusion. You can't actually run an omni-channel, unified commerce, whatever buzzword you want to use today within the four walls without some form of a warehouse management system. Just level of automation today, right? I mean, would you say, raise of hands, highly automated facility versus really, really low automation? So who would say they have highly automated facilities, tilt tray sorters, multi-shuttles, right? 5 miles of conveyor, highly automated facilities today? No? Some, okay. Low end, right? I'm assuming it's the rest of you guys, since they were the only ones that raised their hand for the high-end automation, okay? Just a little deductive reasoning going on here, okay? Anybody running a warehouse execution system? I mean, you actually call it a warehouse execution system? Nobody? Okay. Well, good. Well, hopefully that's why we're here, is to learn about the differences between these basically pieces of software, pieces of technology. So we're going to go through just defining what a warehouse management system is, spend a little time about what a warehouse control system is, talk about warehouse execution, go through kind of the day in the life of the order. And this is important for the actual audience and you guys understand if I'm actually developing and solution architecting what this looks like, the differences between the day in the life of the order. Talk about some standard interface architecture, okay, between your host application, which could be an ERP or an order management. Go through some real quick case studies and then really open up to you guys for questions and answers. And as I go along, I'll make fun of myself. I do talk fast, so I will slow it down as much as I possibly can. So if there's something that you don't understand because I'm talking 90 miles an hour, just really quick, just raise your hand. I'll slow it down, okay? All right, so let's talk about what is a WMS, right? So most of you know what a WMS is, right? I look at a warehouse management system as a highly specialized business application whose purpose is really to control, right, the inventory flow within your four walls. How do I receive product? How do I put product away? How do I replenish from a reserve location to a forward pick location? How do I actually pick product from a forward pick location, take that product, right, from a forward pick location, assign it to a shipping dock, maybe or not, use a warehouse management system to assign it to a carrier, right? That carrier could be a freight carrier, LTL, full truckload, or that carrier could be a parcel carrier, right? Basically, that's what a warehouse management system is doing. It is controlling, quite frankly, what's happening within your four walls. So, other key construct with warehouse management system is the whole concept of waving. I was talking to folks over today with the Ulta folks up here in Chicago, is most warehouse management systems have a function of called a wave process. What is a wave process? Very simply, my ability to take a bunch of orders, batch them together, right? And release them so I can create tasks on the actual distribution floor to basically do something with. Most of those tasks are being handled how? Either through a data collection device, either an RF device, or obviously potentially with voice as well, right? That's really what a warehouse management system is doing. So the key thing is about a warehouse management system is it's verifying receipts, it's taking control of inventory. I think that's a very, very key point. Where you may not have this in a warehouse control, or you may not have this in a warehouse execution system. In a warehouse management system, I am managing, right, basically where inventory sits at all times. What's on my dock? What's in a P&D? A P&D be a pick and drop off location. What's in a reserve location or a buffer location? What's sitting in my reserve rack? And again, that inventory, this is also a key point. That inventory can be tracked by a license plate number where I actually put an LPN at the different units of measure each, right? Inner pack, case, and pallet. But also it can also be measured at the actual location level. There are some warehouse management systems that don't require an LPN. Physically, the location is the LPN, right? And I would also there's one provider that I'm a big fan of as well, that actually doesn't even need an LPN. The device being the voice device, right, the IP address on the RF gun, and the voice is the LPN. So I can literally assign the inventory to me, I can hit a function key and drop it off, right? So again, when you look at a warehouse management system, it's really about managing the inventory. I talk about allocating orders. So again, in a warehouse management system, if I'm dropping orders from my ERP, right, I don't care if you're using SAP, Microsoft Dynamics, Oracle, I'm typically doing a soft allocation, right? I'm saying I know what's on hand, but I'm not going to hard allocate that inventory to a forward pick location, right? So I know that I might have 100 units on hand, but I don't know where I'm going to go get those 100 units from. That's the job of the warehouse management system. When I release that wave's going to release, and it's going to say, hey, I know to go pick that item from location A01, 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 right? That's that hard allocation, okay? So that's what your warehouse management system is doing, and then obviously shipping to customers. So again, we talked about this in summary. We'll go through what a warehouse management system is doing. I'm incorporating some wireless data collection, some barcode, pallet, case, item labels. I can use RFID if I need to, radio frequency identification tags. I may be integrating into some conveyor handling system, and typically I can manage some voice-enabled RF device. So if that's a Vocollect, which is now owned by Honeywell, or a Voxware, I'm actually managing it through voice, okay? Basically, that's what a warehouse management system is doing. If I look at a warehouse control system, right, now we're getting down to the nanosecond. So typically, a warehouse management system is banging away on a relationship database. But when I get down to a warehouse control system, also hitting a database, but I'm hitting this database in milliseconds, right? I'm making real-time decisions in terms of where that inventory is on some piece or in some basically form of automation. That could be a conveyor, right? That could be a multi-shuttle. That could be an ASRS. That could be a tilt tray sorter. That could be a Bombay sorter, right? I'm making real-time decisions down to a millisecond. I'm firing, right? Firing basically messages to make sure the conveyor is responding in terms of where that product needs to go to. Make sense? Okay? So warehouse control system is way, 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 way down here. Now there's one layer lower, not to bore you, with basically PLC logic. And so the advantage of the warehouse control system is that you don't have to be, right, an engineer or electrical engineer doing basically PLC ladder logic. So when I grew up, right, I'm not going to date myself, but let's just say in the late 80s, right, early 90s, I used to write ladder logic. Anybody ever write ladder logic? Okay, we got some old PLC guys, right? So the problem was if I had to make a change, you had to have me go write the ladder logic to make the change to the conveyor controllers, right, within basically a panel. The warehouse control system, it sits one level above, but quite frankly, I can have a maintenance person change how I want to sort something on a downline. I don't need somebody that understands ladder logic. Make sense? So again, warehouse control system exchanges real-time communication, milliseconds, command processing, discrete equipment signals, and the optimization of multiple material handling or unit of measures, right? So again, once I so my warehouse management system, to repeat this real quick, my WMS may release the order. I may go pick it right to a forward pick location. I put that product into a carton with an LPN. I hand that LPN off to my warehouse control system, and it says, oh, I know where you need to go, right? You need to go down my parcel lane. The warehouse management system isn't making that decision. The warehouse control system is determining where that LPN is right now and where it needs to go, right? And it's moving, right, that box, that carton, that license plate from an origin location to a destination location, right? That's what the warehouse control system is doing. So what is a WES? So here's what's happened. So I look at a WES as kind of being the best some warehouse management functionality, and some warehouse control functionality, right? This is what I'd say WES, and I may get, maybe some of the material handling guys here may agree or disagree. This technology is probably 5 to 7 years old, right? And becoming more to the forefront, especially in automated facilities. So warehouse execution system is optimizing balance and how work is performed on automated equipment, okay? So it's making dynamic changes to equipment so I can be what? I can service my customer in a much more efficient and effective manner, okay? So you're moving from this concept of batch, which is typically most warehouse management systems requires you to release a batch of product, to now this concept of dynamic, right? So now I'm making dynamic decisions, okay, with respect to what's happening in my four walls. Make sense? Great use case. Let's say I'm in an automated facility, right, and I've got a simple put wall today. I've released a batch of work for 1,000 orders, okay? And the CEO of your company calls and says, sorry, I got a special order that I want released right now, right, for a special customer. Typically, I've released that batch of work, and it's an automated facility, most likely very difficult to insert, right, a discrete order, reallocate the inventory dynamically, and now make that carton, right, or order a priority on that piece of conveyor. The WS says, hey, I already know what's going on. I know where all my product is on my automation equipment. I'm going to reprioritize those LPNs or those license plate numbers, and I'm going to insert this one special order dynamically and now reprioritize it to make sure it's ahead of the batch I just released, right? Difference between batch processing and dynamic processing, okay? See the difference? So I kind of like this analogy, and again, I always say this, all analogies break down over time, right, as things start to progress, but I'm going to stick with my analogy right now. And my analogy is, if you look at the warehouse management system, I look at the WMS as really the brain today, right? Especially in a semi-automated or non-automated facility. I look at the warehouse management system as the brain. I look at the warehouse control system as a central nervous system. It's taking inputs, right, and signals from different types of automated equipment, and it's really managing what's happening within my four walls. And then my WES, my warehouse execution system, becomes my dynamic feedback system, right? The warehouse control system is stupid. I mean, you can quote me, a warehouse control system is stupid. It needs an input, right? It's being told what to do. It doesn't do anything without the warehouse management system telling it what to do. But the warehouse execution system is that feedback mechanism that says, look, I know what's going on within the four walls of my automated equipment. I'm now going to start dynamically allocating, right, resources, and those resources could be inventory, but more importantly, those resources can also be people, okay? So all of a sudden, if I have a big wave of e-commerce orders that drop, I can reprioritize those orders and reassign resources dynamically in order to make sure I don't miss my SLAs. A warehouse control system isn't going to do that. A warehouse execution system will, okay? So, again, I like the analogy. It kind of gives you an idea from a human anatomy perspective, the difference between a warehouse management, a warehouse execution, and a warehouse control system. I think it's also important to kind of look at what is warehouse management not. So instead of looking at the affirmative, right, I'm going to kind of look at the opposite of the affirmative. So a warehouse management system does not control machine language. We talked about ladder logic. It's not going to control my machine controls and my panels today, right? Typically, it's not going to control put-to-light, sorters, conveyors, prints. It may be the impetus to what needs to be allocated, but it's not going to actually be controlling the actual equipment itself, okay? Typically, AWS does not track cardinal LPNs on automation equipment. I mean, are there times where You may want to architect where I want the license plate numbers to come back in terms of statuses. Hey, the carton's on the conveyor. Yeah, send the message back to the warehouse management system. The carton is now on the tilt tray sorter. Sure. The carton is on the shipping lane. Fine. But most times, most warehouse control systems are not sending feedback, right? Status feedback real time back to my warehouse management system. Okay. Again, there's no graphical user interface on a warehouse management system. I don't walk in and go, where's stuff moving around my 1 million square foot facility? That was typically be at the warehouse control level. And again, warehouse management systems do not dynamically allocate or balance orders and replenish inventory across an automated facility. Typically, no integration, right, to automated equipment. Let's talk about warehouse controls, what they're not. Typically, and I use the word typical consultative speak, right? 2 consulting speak words, typically, and it depends, okay? Okay, so just FYI, I'll leave myself a little room, but typically warehouse control systems aren't interfacing with your ERP applications, right? I don't have a direct interface between my warehouse control system and my ERP. I'm not typically managing inventory with my warehouse control system, okay? Again, it's controlling my automation. It's not controlling my inventory. Not to say that there are not warehouse control systems that don't do wave management, but most of them don't, right? Again, I'm not managing my inventory with my 4 walls. I don't have cycle counting and physical inventory processes today that my warehouse management system would be managing for me. I typically don't have a labor management or be able to manage my resources in a warehouse control system. And most of them do not have some level of transportation planning, right? Or what I call shipping execution. Now, are there warehouse control systems? Sure. There's probably systems integrators that sit there and say, well, Jim, my warehouse control system today does all this, right? And I would say, yeah, but in terms of what industry? I see a lot of warehouse control systems and even WS systems in the beverage industry that are managing, basically moving cases of beer, cases of soda on a given day, right? It's just, I call it a rinse and repeat cycle, right? Not that complicated, very single channel. But when you start getting into multi-channel, the fact that I'm managing both retail, wholesale, and direct-to-consumer at one facility, most times I'm not going to see a warehouse control system manage that type of operation, okay? So, warehouse execution systems, what is it? Well, again, I'm not going to be managing my 4-wall inventory. And I guess if there's a real key construct or concept here, you notice that I've talked about inventory multiple times, okay? Most WCS and most WES applications aren't managing inventory at the finite location level. Are there cases where I can find a WES that does it? Sure, but 9 times out of 10, my warehouse execution system isn't managing inventory at a discrete level or location, okay? Again, I'm not going to be supporting my transportation planning. And when I say transportation planning, what I mean by that is if I'm managing a bunch of outbound routes, right, or I'm managing trailer loads, let's say to Ross stores as an example, my WS isn't going to be the one managing that transportation load, right? I'm going to be using a TMS application to do that or some kind of load planning application to make that happen. And again, I'm not managing, again, with extensive cycle counting and physical inventory processes, right? I apologize if this is hard to read, so you probably want to refer to your piece of paper. I think it's probably be easier to read. But if you notice, there's just some overlap, right? So why? And people go, well, Jim, what's happening commercially in the marketplace for this whole concept of a warehouse execution system, and why is there this big overlap between the two? The reality is it's very simple. You've got material handling integrators and equipment manufacturers like a Dematic, right, like an Intelligrated / Honeywell, moving up in that software space. Why? Okay, it's called the dollar. They want to manage, I mean, it's simple. It's simple as that. They want to manage that relationship And if they can do more with their solution offering, those equipment manufacturers are going to do it. And their ability to move upstream, especially in highly automated facilities, is using a warehouse execution system. That's why you see the overlap. That's why you see things like warehouse execution systems managing small parcel today, managing the concepts of waves, right? So they're doing dynamic wave allocation. They're doing stuff like voice data capture and inventory management, okay? So again, just the key concepts where you see warehouse execution software providers actually being acquired by systems integrators or by equipment manufacturers in order to basically, quite frankly, add more value so that they can generate more revenue. And the other thing commercially, to be honest with you, what's worth more, right? A software company or a conveyor company? Software companies today sell for a lot more in terms of overall market than somebody who's actually just building a piece of steel. So you see a lot of equipment manufacturers moving into that space, okay? So the bottom line is the lines are getting blurred. If you look at warehouse management systems, reporting, alerts, managing inbound PO receiving processes, you're looking at warehouse control systems, you're really seeing the warehouse execution providers moving upstream, right, but also moving downstream, okay? So again, just kind of a good depiction of what's happening in the market. So let's talk about the day in the life of an order. So my depiction, day in the life order, I've got an ERP, an order management system. I've got some soft allocation. Again, like we talked about, I'm soft allocating the fact that I think there's 100 in the building. My warehouse management system is going to take that. I'm going to hard allocate that inventory. I'm going to send it to my warehouse control system. And now that warehouse control system is be managing where that carton is, in this case here, right angle transfer, or a print and apply, or an inline scale. In this case here, this is a large pick and pass system that we designed. But I'm managing where that LPN is on that automation at all given time. So again, this is pre-WS or pre-warehouse execution. Pretty straightforward. ERP, soft allocation. WMS is going to hard allocate the inventory. My warehouse control system is now going to manage where, right, that LPN is on my automation, make sure that I get it on the actual parcel truck. Pretty straightforward day in the life, right? Let's talk about, let's put the WS in here. So there are some software providers that have this as a one solution. So their WES and their WCS are one platform, okay? And there are some providers that you can put a line right here and say, there are warehouse control providers and there are warehouse execution providers. But same flow, ERP order management is going to soft allocate, it's going to hit my warehouse management system, I'm going to hard allocate, but this is a feedback mechanism. Again, like I said before in my example, if all of a sudden I dropped a priority order in this pick and pass system, I know that LPN, I know who you are by customer type or by order status type. I can start reprioritizing how I move that carton, right, ahead of other cartons on that piece of equipment. Make sense? That's what that WES is doing. It's really taking control one layer above the warehouse control system and one layer below the warehouse management system and saying, look, I'm now going to start managing the resources within these four walls. That's what a warehouse execution system is doing. So I get this question asked all the time. Jim, do I even need a warehouse management system in a lights out building, highly automated facility? And the answer, you guys should know this, good consulting speak, is what? It depends, right? So you can, and we've done it. We've actually put in highly automated equipment in facilities without a warehouse management system at all, right? A lot of flow-through centers, a lot of cross docks, where literally I'm bringing product in the four walls, I'm receiving it, I'm allocating it, I'm issuing it a distro being SKU store quantity, right? I'm putting it on a cross belt sorter, it goes out the door. There is no need for a wave. There is no reason for me to actually allocate inventory from any location. right? I'm flowing inventory in and out that door where I've got a cycle time of basically minutes, not hours, but minutes, right? There's really no need to have a warehouse management system in that type of highly automated facility. So, standard interface architecture, just for those who may be interested. Typically, I'm going to have an ERP or host. I've got an interface layer. Again, this could be point-to-point or an ESB. ESB standing for Enterprise Service Bus, right? So this could be a Web Methods, this could be a Mercator, this could be a TIPCO, right? But I've got to have some interface layer between my host and my warehouse management and my warehouse execution system, okay? What is it doing? That bus, right? Again, you can go point to point, and by far, the cheapest way to do integration is point to point. Short term, right? Long term, point to point integration can be costly, okay? So short term, go point to point. If I only had one facility and I was only going to be operating one facility for the rest of my life, I just simply do point to point and be done with it, right? Fast, cheap, done. But if I'm running a 13 DC node, I'm truly omni-channel, I'm going to take the investment, take the time to put in an interface integration framework like an ESB to do that messaging. So PO header, receipt detail, item master, sales order, shipment detail, inventory adjustment, I'm going to integrate to my WMS or WES. My WCS is connected to my WMS. Typically, most integrations between WCS and warehouse management systems is going to be a sockets interface, right? Simple ACK messages that are very, very quick. And then I'm going to have some shipping execution. Again, many WMS providers, the Manhattans of the world that are just right out in front, the JDAs of the world, are basically building shipping execution into their warehouse management systems. So the ability to actually print out carrier compliant labels, do rating, etc., are becoming native into this WMS. Wow, I'm out of breath. Okay, case studies. I've got about 17 minutes here. So let's talk about just simple case studies. So here was a client that we worked with, $800 million fashion apparel company. They put in a tier 1 WMS. I'll tell you who it was. It was Manhattan. WCS required for put to light and conveyor. However, here's what was interesting. They made a very, very bad design decision. The systems integrator had a warehouse control system that they were selling, okay? And the systems integrator said, look, use my WCS for discrete order picking. What do you think happened? Because that warehouse control system, right, wasn't controlling inventory at the forward pick location. So now, the associate, excuse me, the associate goes to pick the item with a RF device, and I'm not controlling inventory at the forward pick location, right? So in the South, we call that a goat rope, okay? All right, so there's a little, or a cluster, you know what, right? That was just a mistake, right? So the reality is that, look, the WMS assumed inventory was always in the forward pick location, but more importantly, assumed it was correct. The warehouse control system provider had no need, right, to be managing the forward picking at all with a RF device. Because this is a key point. There's a key takeaway. Determine who in the heck is giving me the system of record, right, of managing inventory. That's mission critical, right? And do not have one provider managing inventory, right, or having multiple system of records. You need one provider managing all order allocation and all inventory in the warehouse, period. When you start separating it, you start getting a goat rope in terms of basically who's managing it, and it causes huge, huge service issues, right, and data integrity issues. Who do you put the finger at, right? So here's what happened. The warehouse control system provider was going, well, it's not my mistake, your inventory is not correct. I'm just go out there, I pick. And the warehouse management system provider, in terms of Manhattan, was saying, wait a minute. we should be managing inventory, right? So again, bad design, okay? So the point of the conversation is know what provider does what best, right? Find a solutions architect that actually can help you determine what technology should be best to manage the flow of inventory through your four walls. So case study 2, highly automated, right? This was a great success story. $4 billion shoe retailer, tier 1 WMS. I'll give my friends at Manhattan another plug. Manhattan Associates, right on the actual, on the WMS. They manage inbound receipts, they manage the inventory control, they manage the replenishment to the tilt tray sorter, meaning they manage the replenishment from the forward pick locations, right, when the waiver is released to feed the tilt tray sorter, right? They manage the forward picking for accessory items and they manage allocations, and they stopped, right? Manhattan then stopped. The warehouse control system provider, which in this case was Intelligrated, back then it was actually Bushman. Bunch of changes in the actual space, but bottom line is this was Intelligrated. They manage everything on the actual, they manage every piece of automation, right? So there was a nice handoff, both asynchronously and synchronously between the warehouse management. The point of the conversation is that everybody knew their role, right? Everybody knew their role and everybody stood basically in their own swim lanes. And so, again, the WCS also managed, we also had a separate control system for the tilt tray. Why? Because Manhattan is not very strong, right or wrong, or most WMS providers, not to pick on Manhattan, not very strong allocating inventory right to that chute, right? Dynamically. Neither was the WCS. So we actually had a third-party software managing dynamically what happened on that tilt tray sorter, okay? So the point of the conversation is, when you have the right solutions architect that understands how to have everybody in their own box play nicely, right, with the intent of getting product out the door, a WMS, a WCS, and a WS provider can play very nicely together, right, within the four walls. So, lessons learned. Understand which WMS or WCS and now WS does fit, right? Your business lines are getting blurred. Understand how the physical movement of inventory, unit of measures move through your facility, manual versus automated. And then use a solutions architect, right, that knows both technologies. Because here's the reality, guys, right? If I only sold watches, right, and you had a problem with me, or you wanted me to tell you how to basically tell time, I'm going to sell you the watch that I've got at my disposal, right? Period. Okay? But there are different ways to tell time. And so the point of the conversation is that whoever gets to you first, right, is going to push their system on you because they're biased, right? Try to take those biases out by finding somebody who actually understands the entire footprint from an enabling technology perspective, both WES, WCS, right, and warehouse control. And then last but not least, happy path workflows, right? Focus on happy path workflows, but really what really makes or breaks a system go live, especially if it's an automated environment, is really focusing on the exceptions. Focus on error resolution, right, on how you're going to manage those errors within your four walls, okay? Questions? I got 11 minutes, so you can either ask questions or you guys can go to a late lunch, whatever works best for you, right? Thank you.